Hi y'all, welcome to my channel. This is the Survivor's Guide to Life. My name is Jessica Lang and this channel is dedicated to all things related to trauma, the brain, and healing. So if that's your jam, go ahead and click that subscribe button so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. And while you're at it, jump on over to Instagram. Go ahead and follow me there where I continue to post more things related to the brain, more things related to trauma, general mental health, mental wellness, tips and tricks, motivation, self-esteem building, all those kinds of things. So again, if you're into that, then follow me on Instagram. I'm also trying to get to that beautiful 10,000K subscribers where I can then get the swipe up feature and link everything from my YouTube video to my Instagram, and it's just a nice, neat, linear, clean path. It just makes things really easy. And you can also send me DMs over on Instagram and I reply to them. If you have any questions or anything that you want me to talk about specifically, then you can send me a DM or you can even comment down below and I'll reply and make a video out of it. I like to make this channel interactive and help you grow and learn and just live your best life. So without further ado, let's jump into today's topic. Okay, so I have been putting off doing this video for the longest time. This is going to be a reaction to the R. Kelly documentary, docuseries, I don't know what you want to call it, Surviving R. Kelly, where they talked all about his history, his long history of, let's just call it what it is, abuse towards young women, women and girls really, because it's been reported that he has been having I'm not even saying sexual relations because I'm sorry, 12-year-olds cannot consent, so it's statutory rape. So he has been raping, abusing, assaulting, whatever phrase you want to put in there, girls as young as 14 for a couple decades now, it seems like. So I'm gonna say that I, as somebody born in the 80s and grew up on R. Kelly, as a young girl, I didn't really understand some of these rumors. I didn't really know what any of it meant. When I did hear about it, I just knew that I liked his music and he had some good jams, he had a good voice, and so I liked him when I was younger. As I got older, I have never been one to really pay attention to what's going on with like celebrities and the music industry. It's like in the news related to celebrities in that way, so I don't actually really know the depths of what's going on. But I did hear a lot of commentary in my therapist community, and also I'm in some, not just therapist communities, but I'm in communities for black women, and a lot of people were commenting on the video. So I felt like, okay, I don't really pay attention, I don't really know what's going on, but I'm gonna watch this documentary because everyone's talking about it. I've got clients who are coming to me, they're talking about it because they're becoming triggered because of the documentary. As well as like people's comments, because unfortunately, it's the internet and people say what they're going to say, and being triggered by reading some of the comments with people who are defending R. Kelly. And so I thought, okay, I gotta watch this and then talk about it. As a therapist who works with sexual abuse survivors, it was just too important to ignore. So that's just kind of my caveat, and was just floored with all of the information that was coming out with, the history of R. Kelly. And so I made a couple of notes of things that I thought were just really important, and I also asked you all on Twitter also to send me some of your questions or things you wanted me to cover. I didn't get any feedback yet about it, so if I get people who are asking me, or you comment down below after this video and you're like, oh, but can you talk about this, can you talk about that, I'll do a follow-up video. So this is just going to be my straight up reaction of watching that video as a therapist and being like, oh my gosh. One of the things I wanted to address was that R. Kelly mentioned, and his older brother also mentioned, that they were abused as children.
Anything else when you're a child, whatever you're taught, it goes with you. And yes, I was molested when I was from 7 on to maybe 13, 14, something like that, by people in my family.
So I didn't know that about R. Kelly, that he had been molested when he was a child. And I know a lot of people have sympathy for him. And I just want to say that you can have sympathy for somebody, sympathy for their experience, sympathy for the fact that he was abused, and still hold him accountable for his abusive behavior towards others. We don't need to have black and white thinking or extreme thinking about these two things. Both things can exist. I can have empathy for him, for that child that was being abused, that wasn't protected, and also say that that's not an excuse for his current behavior. And I also want to say that yes, we know that there, many survivors of childhood abuse do go on and abuse others, but that's not everybody, and it's not even 50%. It's not even 40% of the population. So I don't want you to think that, oh my God, I was abused as a child, I'm gonna go be an abuser, or my son was abused as a child, he's gonna go be like. That's just not how things go. We kind of think of it kind of like a perfect storm in a sense. A bunch of other things need to come into play in order to make someone behave in a way that they're going to behave. So it's not just one thing. It's a multitude of things. One of the things that was also mentioned in this video that I wanted to kind of highlight that that just doesn't get talked about enough, and I'll also link it not just down below, but also at the end of this video, there will be a place you can just click on the card and you can see the video I did on mother-daughter incest. But it's quite frequent and it's just not talked about. Women who sexually abuse young boys, young girls, that is also very common. And typically you will see that scenario with the young girl who talked about how she was like 19 when she got involved with R. Kelly, and then she was involved in the sex tape with the backup dancer Sparkle's niece, who was 14, and she was having sexual relations with this 14-year-old girl, as well as R. Kelly at the same time. So they were having threesomes together. So you will see that is one of the more common occurrences that you'll see with women who abuse children. Women who abuse, it's in the confines of a relationship with a man who is abusing them as well. But that doesn't mean that women don't go about being sexual abusers, being predators, without that component, if that makes sense. So like, I just wanted to really highlight that I'm glad that piece was talked about, even though it wasn't the highlight. Obviously they're talking about R. Kelly, but like, I'm glad that it shed some light on the fact that women do abuse children, and that if a child says, mommy or auntie or whomever touched me or molested me, or your adult child comes to you and says, hey, mom and I aren't cool because she abused me when I was young, that you take that child at face value, you take that grown person at face value. Because despite what many people believe, women, girls abuse children, males, they don't make that up. They do not make up somebody sexually abusing them. There's 1% of the population, maybe, of people who will who have false allegations. And if you look in their history, you look through their patterns, you'll see some other stuff going on as well that will kind of help you understand, okay, yeah, that's what's going on with this person. That's why they're doing the false allegation thing. Sometimes the false allegations also come about because the way the memory gets fragmented with prolonged abuse, especially prolonged sexual abuse, is that you get fractured. So you don't have all of and you can watch some of my other videos that I've done about the brain and the stress response system and how that all comes into play. But one of the hallmarks of the actual PTSD diagnosis, that if you look in the DSM-5 will tell you, is that people they'll be missing parts of the trauma. Like, they won't be able to fully recount every step by step what happened, and that's because memories are held in your brain, and that it's held kind of in the top part. And when the stress response system gets kicked in high drive with the fear, when your arousal system of fear and terror is triggered, that you will not be able, like, that top part where you hold the memories, you don't have access to it, right? You hold the cognitions, that part gets cut off, and you are living in your limbic system, in your brain system, and you're existing only in survival mode. So of course parts get fragmented because you don't have access to what's going on intentionally. That's your brain, your body's way of protecting you and keeping you alive. And so having, just understanding that, like, that is a normal process, and that if somebody's saying that they, not even, when someone says, hey, I was abused, hey, I was sexually abused, you know, you don't want to press them for details. There's a way you can help people access those traumatic memories in a safe way where they can, because it's stored in there, they just don't have automatic access to it. And if you try to pull it out in a way that threatens, that makes them feel threatened, then you're activating that stress response system again, and then they're not going to have access to that cortex. They're going to be back down in their lower systems, the limbic system and the brain stem, and they're just in survival mode, and you're not going to get accurate information. So I went off on like a mini tangent, but I just wanted to just stress the fact that people don't make stuff up like that. I also wanted to really touch on one of the jurors on the video. They said,
I just didn't believe them, the woman. I know it sounds ridiculous. The way they dress, the way they act, I didn't like them. I voted again. I disregarded all what they said.
First, let's just backtrack one step even before that. When I read comments or have, when I read comments about the video, people will say, he was convicted, he wasn't convicted in the court of law, so he's innocent. First off, like, being put on trial, right? Our justice system is that you have to prove someone is guilty. It doesn't mean that they're innocent. It just means that you were unable to prove that they were guilty. That doesn't mean the person didn't do something. It just means you couldn't prove that they did. So when these jurors said, hey, they got the case for Mark, they heard all the testimony. The main witness, the 14-year-old girl who was in the video, did not testify for whatever reason. People speculate that she was paid off. That might be true. I wouldn't be surprised, especially because her family is holding, they're the ones in charge. She's 14. She's going to have to go along with what they say. But they laid out the evidence as best as they could. The jurors got the evidence. They determined that it wasn't enough to convict him. And one of the men said this. So this really irritated me. And I know it triggered a lot of my clients because he was victim blaming. He literally said, I don't believe that he did these horrible things because of the way these girls were dressed. First off, they were 14, 13, 15, 16. I don't care. They're children. He's a grown-up. He knows better. No. I just no. Secondly, we as women can dress however the hell we want to dress. If we want to dress in a sexy way, we should be allowed to dress like that without being accosted or raped or assaulted. Just like a man can walk down the street and wear whatever the hell he wants and nobody's gonna assault and accost him. And I just think that's point blank number one. It doesn't matter how somebody's dressed. That does not give somebody else the right to hurt them. He was victim blaming this young girl. And that was heartbreaking. I also want to add that, and I've done videos about this too, so you can check them out. Research has shown that the prefrontal cortex, the top part of our brain, it's developing our whole life, but it does not complete its maximize development until 25 for girls typically and 26 for boys. So you got a 14-year-old or a 19-year-old, they do not have a fully developed prefrontal cortex. And one of the main jobs of that prefrontal cortex is to curb your impulses. So your emotions will come, your brainstem will kick in, and you have these urges and these drives to do certain things. If you've ever seen a 2-year-old who wants a toy, their friend takes a toy and they hit them automatically. When you are 5, your 5-year-old has enough of a prefrontal cortex that they're not going to hit first. They're going to say, Sammy, give me my toy back, or I want it back, more typically because they whine. And they'll do a little bit of talking, and then if that doesn't work, they go to the hitting, right? Because over time, they have been taught how to curb that impulse to hit, because a 2-year-old is one of their natural impulses is to hit. or to spit or to bite or whatever, is to get what they want immediately. They don't know how to delay gratification, right? And we don't expect a 2-year-old, like we expect them to hit, but we also expect them to, like, that over time they're not going to go around hitting people. You do not expect a 14-year-old or a 6-year-old to have the forethought, the capacity to fully think through all of their decisions. They just can't. And so to hold a girl, a boy, a young person accountable in that type of way, I just think is so wrong. And so I know that a lot of people, they wonder, especially now, like, we know all these rumors about R. Kelly, like, why would you go off and be with somebody now that you know all these things? And again, it's that, first off, like, I didn't really know all about R. Kelly. I know now. So I feel like now with this information, there's gonna be more awareness and more parents who are like, oh no, like, I don't care I don't care about what R. Kelly has going on. Like, I've seen the documentary, I'm protecting my daughters. For so long, we didn't really have this information, or it wasn't out there like that. At least I didn't find it. It wasn't front and center news. It wasn't all over Twitter. It wasn't all over Facebook. So people can get like a little bit of a pass for not really knowing, or not a pass, but like we can have a little bit more compassion and forgiveness. But also, teens, unfortunately, because they don't have that prefrontal cortex fully developed, they're going to be going off their emotions. They're going to be going off of, I want to be famous, and this is somebody who could make me be famous. And they might even feel like they are smart enough, tough enough, diligent enough to not fall prey to these things. And it's up to the parents or the adults who are in their life to put the kibosh on it and be like, no, you can't do this. I know this is something you want. We'll find another way. But it's up to the parents to take care of our daughters in a way that, and our sons in a way that they just don't have the ability to do, because they don't have life experiences and they don't have a fully developed prefrontal cortex to stop that impulse, to stop them going on that emotional ride. Finally, one of the other common kind of themes that I noticed in the documentary series were the women who would date R. Kelly, and they fell in love with him, and then they went along with his weird, they gotta live in the house, they can't have access to, gotta call him daddy, and like all that kind of weird, abusive, emotional abusive, sometimes physical abusive, domestic violence type dynamic. And so I just really wanted to touch on that briefly, and link that to like trauma and the brain, of course, because that's what I do on this channel.
Comment though. If the girl seems like she's weak, she don't really have the family support, or no one's gonna come asking questions, or he's even able to manipulate the family, that's the girl he's gonna bring into the house. Girls who are in the house are girls who are just totally dependent on him.
He go for the younger girls because they're weak-minded, but if you're older and he feels like you're weak-minded, he's going to go for you too. It doesn't matter if you're 16 or if you 40. If he can control you, that's all he wants. When I first met R. Kelly, I was just shell-shocked. I was like really nervous, and like he was just real friendly, just talking openly, laughing, telling jokes, and I laughed. R. Kelly and I started dating. Officially for us, it was 2014. It was really like a high for me because again, it's R. Kelly. So it's like I'm engaging in the conversation, texting with R. Kelly. In the beginning, he gave me some of the rules, but not all of the rules. He pretty much let me know that he had other girls. Either I accept it. If I couldn't accept it, then there's no need for us to even try anything. At the time, knowing that I was not the only woman in his life, I was okay with it because I felt like he was honest. I was married before. My husband, he was abusive as well as he was a cheater. And I respected the fact that R. Kelly was honest to let me know that it's not just you that I'm seeing. So it was just like a dream come true, and it was like I was willing to do anything to please him.
So this is really common, and when I hear somebody speaking in this manner about their experiences. I automatically think of, so we have the fight, flight, freeze response, and this is the way our body handles extreme stress. So we either have the urge to flee, we have the urge to fight, or we freeze. And freeze happens when the brain senses that there's no way to fight your way out of it or run your way out of it. And it's a very primitive defense, and you have no control. You can't think your way out of doing one of them. It's automatic. It's based on what your brain assesses within, a couple of seconds of what the threat level is. And so if you are somebody who's been repeatedly victimized, then most of the time the freeze response is going to be the one that gets incorporated, because it's the one that has been working. And again, you have to think about it like this, like these are all adaptations. So they're based off of learned experiences. So freeze response gets activated, and with the freeze response, what happens is your heart rate slows down, your body gets flooded with endorphins, and endorphins are make you feel good. They act in a similar manner to like heroin or like codeine, like painkillers, things that dull the pain so you don't actually feel pain anymore. That's what the endorphins, and this is a natural occurring hormone in your body. So your body gets flooded with hormones as it's preparing to be assaulted. So your body's preparing for you to be hurt and for you not to feel it. Your brain shuts down, right? So you don't have access to that cortex. You're in your limbic system. You're in your brain stem. Your heart rate starts to slow down. So you just kind of go along with what's going on. One of the outward components of the freeze mechanism that you'll see with people who are in that freeze response is what we call overly compliant behavior. So, and this is what you'll see in these situations with folks who are in domestic violence type situations like this, where or emotional abusive situations, is because they're in their freeze response and they don't have access to their cortex, and they're just kind of going along with it because that's what their brain is telling them. Hey, gotta maximize survival, so I'm going to do what they say. And this is not a cognitive function. This is not like I'm thinking about this, that's what I'm doing. It's automatic. You're not thinking about it, you're just doing it. You get this overly compliant behavior. So the threat level is deemed over, or like they don't feel threatened anymore. And then their body starts to slowly come back online. They have more access to their cortex, and like, wait, why did I do that? If they're older. I see this quite often in kids, and they're the ones who they get removed from their parents, and they get into like a foster family, and their foster family absolutely loves them and wants to adopt them, because a lot of times when we're like, okay, this kid was abused, like you have all this anxiety and worry about their behaviors, but they don't display any of that, and they're really compliant, and they know how to please you, like they know how to please adults around them, and they seem like happy and like nothing's wrong with them, but it's all a part of that freeze response, and it's an adaptation that's kept them alive. This actually makes them more susceptible later in life, like these girls that you've seen who are in these environments, these abusive environments where like they don't speak up because chance of survival. So I'm not going to speak up. I'm not going to do anything that's going to make somebody hurt me in any type of way. I don't want to be hurt. Nobody wants to be hurt, obviously. So I'm just going to be compliant and do whatever they say. But inside, they struggle with a lot of anxiety. They struggle with depression. They struggle with their self-worth because they're doing things that they don't really want to do, but they don't know how to stop their behavior. They don't understand even really what's going on. They don't even understand that they're in a freeze/dissociative response. And over time, that they become so easily triggered, they easily fall prey to re-victimization because their body senses every little thing. I talked about this in previous videos. The stress response system gets kicked up, and the natural resolution is for it to come down, and you're okay. Like, you're supposed to go up, you come down. But what happens with repeated traumas is you go up, you're coming down, something else happens, you go back up again, you come down, something else happens, and so your baseline, instead of being down here where it naturally was, gets shifted up above, and so now you're more sensitive to threats in your environment. And when your predominant mode of coping is the freeze/dissociative response, then any trigger in your environment that resembles a threat, you're going to go move automatically into that freeze mode, and you don't realize what's going on You don't even know that this is a freeze response. You just know you're acting in a way that you don't really want to, but you don't know how to stop it. You don't know how to control it. And you have a lot of fear, and you have a lot of anxiety and depression, and issues with self-worth as a result. And you keep getting into these repeated patterns, because again, brain loves familiarity, and brain knows what to do in a situation where the person like gives off certain vibes, and it, even if it registers it as a threat, like it still knows what to do with it. And it's like, I'm making it really simplistic, but it's a little bit more complex than that. But I just was trying to make it put it like in a digestible way, so you can kind of understand what these women are going through. Most of the women on these who talked in the video were survivors of trauma. They had some other type of trauma happen in their childhood. One woman talked about being sexually abused multiple times as a child. The other woman talked about being in a previous domestic violence situation, right? So again, she was drawn to, and just, you know, so you can be clear, like, one of the fallacies that we've been, you know, trained or, you know, learned as, you know, young girls or young boys is like stranger danger, and, or, you know, the bad people look bad, right? Criminals look a certain way, abusers look a certain way. But the truth of the matter is, true abusers, true narcissists, true people that harm others often look normal. They look attractive. They have a confidence about them. They have an aura around them. And one of the things that they become really savvy at doing is grooming, and that's preparing their victim to be their prey, basically. And so they might shower them with, and they listen, like they're really good at listening, and they're really good to kind of figure out what your vulnerabilities are. And so they use your vulnerabilities, your insecurities, things that you want against you. They get in there and they say all the right things, they do all the right things, they are not overtly abusive, and some of the psychologists who were on the program also talked about it. You know, it's a systematic pattern of behavior, and they start testing the water slowly. So I think almost every one of those girls mentioned that he would be like, you know, call me daddy, and you're like, okay, whatever. First off, like, I don't know about you, and this could just be me as a therapist who deals with sexual abuse on a daily basis. That repulses me. Like, I have never called a man I was intimate with daddy. Like, that's just, no. You know, if I hear it in song lyrics, or if I hear people, like, that's gross. Like, your dad is your dad. Like, dad should not be sexualized. I can't even deal with it. So, like, that to me is like, oh man, I'm repulsed by it. I don't know about how other people are, but for me, that's like, it's never gonna happen. But that was his thing. He wanted these girls to call him daddy. So one woman was like, call you daddy, okay. Like, she thought it was weird, but she was like, okay, yeah, whatever. And then he started trying other little things. And then she got swept up and caught up in the rug. So that's more typical of grooming behavior, like an abuser. They're not going to be overt with it. They're not going to just smack you around one day. You know, they do these little things to try to test and see what they can and cannot get away with, that lead up to the bigger things. So it's a slow process of breaking somebody down. And then, but because they do it so systematically and so slowly, and it builds upon itself, and you're in your freeze response, that you start to really feel like, oh man, something's wrong with me, I feel really worthless, and you engage in these behaviors, and it becomes like a self-fulfilling process, or like a feedback loop of, like, he says, you know, he or Kelly or your abuser says something horrible about you, and then you engage in certain behavior that you're not necessarily proud of. So then it reinforces, like, oh, I am worthless because, see, I just did this thing right here. And then you just keep repeating that pattern over and over again. So it's like you're systematically degrading yourself and engaging in, like, self-destructive behaviors. And now it's, you know, you feel like shit. So that's kind of those are kind of the main themes that I noticed in the R. Kelly video. And that really just, I could completely understand what was going on for these victims. My heart really went out to them, to their families, and I hope helped shed some light for you as a watcher, even though it might have been really triggering if you're an abuse survivor, and even if you're not. I feel like this was a very, very triggering documentary, that I hope it opened your eyes and gave you some compassion for what sexual abuse survivors, women who are men who are experiencing domestic violence, what they go through, how hard it is to leave, how much compassion and love and nurturance and patience that they really do need, and also how we need to really hold people accountable for the behaviors that they engage in that are not okay, that their celebrity, that them being rich, that them apologizing shouldn't negate the pain that they cause towards others, and that we need to really keep our eyes open and protect our loved ones, even if that, even if that risks ridicule, like in the case of the young woman Sparkle, who like didn't speak to her family for years. So I would love to hear from you. Comment down below. Let me know what you thought about the R. Kelly documentary. Let me know if you think I missed something, I should have covered something. If you have questions that you think maybe I can answer as a therapist who works with trauma survivors, I would love to just have a conversation. I think it was such a valuable documentary that was done that really opened up the conversation more about sexual abuse, sexual violence, and how we unnecessarily and to our detriment sexualize young girls and teenage girls in a way that's not healthy for them, and that they are still young girls and they are not adults, and they don't have that forethought, they don't have the impulse control that somebody who's older does, and that we should really be taking that into account. And that even if they want to dress sexy or dress in sweats or whatever, that like we should really be respecting their bodies, respecting them as people, and not allowing that to be the reason that it's okay for them to be victimized. Because I think some of the, like that, what that juror mentioned, that's basically what he was co-signing. What R. Kelly's doing and what other celebrities do, like Drake, who's been in the news also. I think Kylie Jenner, right, and Tyga, I think that's, I don't know celebrity culture, forgive me, but I think they're another one where like she was underage and he was an adult. Like that stuff is not okay. It's just not, sorry. So anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can be notified every time I upload new videos. Again, this channel is all things related to trauma, the brain, and healing, and I hope that you found it useful. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.